Welcome, Forecast Episode 5. For my podcast listeners, I am back in a suit. If you hear a little pep in my voice, if I sound more authoritative, it is because today I put pants on. Like many people, I have become more casual during the pandemic. A surprise to me. I would maybe wear shorts. No, I would never wear shorts to the office. Maybe twice in the last 8 years I've worn shorts before, but I have fallen into a habit of wearing shorts. But I put the suit on today, I sweated it out on the way to work, but I feel great and I am ready to jump into this. There is a lot happening in the world and on the internet, and let's jump into it, and let's start by talking about Reels again. And a question of, do I think Reels is going to take over TikTok? Let me first start by talking about the features. If you haven't seen, there was a great article at Taylor Lorenz in the New York Times today talking through some of the misses on Reels. She said that Reels is one of the worst products she's ever used in her life. The other person who was working on the article certainly said it was the worst thing he's ever used that Instagram has made. It's sloppy, it's not super innovative, it's the app has gotten really, really busy in general. I'm surprised that Reels launched without any real innovation. See, there's nothing different about it than TikTok other than it's not as good. That's surprising from the most powerful technology company in the world. They had months, years to work on this. I'm going to focus less on the individual features and more about, from a macro level, why I think Reels will have a hard time competing with TikTok. First is the cultures in those platforms, right? TikTok is all about internet and youth culture, right? A lot of young kids, a lot of meme culture, a lot of deep internet, very online culture happening, and that is what is celebrated and what does well. Whereas Instagram is a bit more about celebrity culture, just the currency of the platforms and what is seen as interesting or what quote unquote does well on those platforms is so different that I don't think Instagram is going to be able to capture that culture because young kids just don't really like it. Instagram, at least in its current iteration, is generally a no sound platform. I know most people that we talk to, interview, survey, are not looking at Instagram with the sound on. That's for stories and in feed. But sound and music is such a big part of what makes TikTok and those videos great. A big part of TikTok is sound matching, where they take your videos and they automatically beat match the video to music and they automatically edit it for you as well. Instagram doesn't do any of that, right? It's a distraction platform, and it's one that'll often you don't have the sound on. Changing that behavior in users, getting them to think about using Instagram with the sound on is going to be difficult, and that's a hurdle they have to cross. TikTok is an entertainment platform. You go there to be entertained. And a lot of times people are sitting down and they're saying, all right, I'm gonna go get my 30 minutes of TikTok in right now. I know that's how I consume it. I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to look at TikTok now. Anyone you talk to at TikTok, they're like, oh, it's, you just get pulled in. You were there for a few minutes and then you look up and it's an hour. Instagram's not like that because, again, you're often using it in between other things. Commercial breaks, again, your friend going to the bathroom, the boring part of a meeting, whatever it is. They're going to have to figure out how video content and looking through videos of people that you don't know, how does that work on a platform that, while you may spend a lot of time on the platform throughout the day, you're not spending a lot of time on the platform in one single chunk, oftentimes. Facebook has always been very clear that they are in the business of attention. Any app that threatens that, they first will try and buy, and if they can't, they try and copy it. They're looking at those numbers that say 18 to 24-year-olds are spending an hour a day on TikTok and 40 minutes a day on Instagram, and that is terrifying for them. They have to try and slow the flow of attention out of Instagram into TikTok, and Reels might do that a little bit. It's going to slow TikTok's growth a bit. Maybe that's what they need in the short term to figure out how to continue to keep people on the platform in the long term. I do not think that this is their effort to take down TikTok. I don't think that anyone really believed that Reels in its current form was going to be a TikTok killer in the way that Stories was a Snapchat killer. Facebook's business is selling ads. We always say that ads is the business of selling attention, and so they need to do whatever they can to hold people's attention. And right now, Reels is an effort to try and slow that, not to completely crush it. I know that they will have bigger plans on what they do to compete for especially young people's attention moving forward, because that's the biggest threat to the long-term viability of their business is the attention of young people. Essentially, Snapchat was a feature. It was a single feature that could be bolted onto Instagram. The idea of disappearing content, that was a feature that they could just co-opt. And Snapchat's whole business was more of a feature than a platform. But TikTok is built completely different. Everything about the way you find content, the way you consume it, the way you create it is different than Instagram. And so to compete, they would have to completely change the model and take away what's great about Instagram and different about Instagram. And we might just be coming up to a point where, as platforms age, as any business ages, people want something different. In 2019, Facebook made $71 billion, and it is an engine for selling advertising. Somehow they have stayed dominant since I was a sophomore in college in 2004. Maybe we're seeing the cracks, but I think the competition is good, and I'm interested to see where it goes. For the rest of the time we have together, I want to talk about another platform, which is Substack. I know we talked a bit about it last week. You've got Substack, OnlyFans, and Patreon. 3 different ways to monetize your following through subscriptions. Substack seems to be gaining some traction. You might remember 6 months ago or so, we launched something called Sidecar. Well, we put something into beta, and we had a few influencers test the idea of building a subscription business off of your following. Some of you might be thinking about doing this, wondering, should I start a Substack? What is it? First of all, what is it? It's essentially a paid newsletter. Really easy for you to create a newsletter, to have like a free version and a paid version, or just paid versions, and charge people for newsletters. Newsletters are, in general, coming back into fashion. Once blogs became less popular and everything moved to Instagram, there is still this desire for longer form content, and I think that newsletters have stepped in and taken that spot. My favorite newsletter, just as a side shout out, is Noah Kalina's, and we should definitely throw a link up here. Noah has the best newsletter in the world, and every single one of you should subscribe. Your life and your Mondays will be better for it, I absolutely guarantee. We created Sidecar, this way for influencers to kind of take what they're doing in a longer form and charge people for it. I thought it was really going to work. It didn't really work. I think most people converted about 0.1% of their following to paid. So if you have 100,000 followers, that's 100 paid subscribers. That's across the board the average of what was being converted. So I think if you're thinking about starting a paid account, be it OnlyFans, be it Patreon, be it Substack, or you're having people Venmo you and to get onto your close friends, I do think that there's a chance Instagram will launch a paid part of the app in the next 18 months. They can't like that Nicki Minaj and people are going to OnlyFans. It makes sense. They're going to launch it. There's almost no chance that they don't. You have to think about what are you giving that is unique and different, and you have to make sure that they can't get that anywhere else without paying. This is the reason OnlyFans works so well in the sex worker community. People will follow sex workers on Instagram, and it's like, hey, I literally cannot post nudes on Instagram, but I can on OnlyFans. So pay me $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever it is, and you can get access to my nudes. That is what makes the platform work really well. You're paying to access content that you cannot get anywhere else. What makes Substack work, a lot of the most subscribed Substacks are educational. They're from entrepreneurs or investors or thought leaders who are writing about things that are theoretically going to make you better at your job, make you more successful, make you smarter. You're used to paying for that content. You're used to paying to read books. And so if you think of a newsletter as a micro book, then paying for it makes sense. But if I liked one photo that you publish, let's say you publish a photo a day, and I like that photo, I may not be willing to pay to see 20 of them. If you're a photographer and you want to monetize your following, it probably makes more sense to put a book out and sell that than to try and sell a subscription to your photos, because people are used to paying for books. If you're a writer, people are used to paying to access writing. Books, most high-end journalism is pay-gated. I'm used to paying for that. Charging someone for beauty tutorials is going to be harder than workout classes. People are used to paying for personal training for workout classes. So I think there's some nuance there, but thinking about, is this something people are used to paying for, and do I have enough authenticity, enough experience to justify charging people for this content. Another thing to think of if you launch these things is, like your Instagram, it takes a while to grow it. You might think that overnight you're just going to convert a huge amount of your following. I do think that influencers can build a subscription base that can change their life, that can be really impactful, but that could take years. Right? It took you years to build your Instagram, and you're foolish to think that overnight you can turn those into paid users and run to the bank laughing. You have to, if you're going to do these things, you have to think about your 3, 6, 12, 24-month goals and really invest in it, because it is not something that you can do successfully without quite a bit of effort. And you stop having followers and you start having customers. And I think that is, that's a very different relationship. As always, keep the questions coming. We'll keep the answers coming, and I will see you next week.